Welcome guys, welcome to Ekam Academy. See, economy happens to be, I do not use this word difficult, but yes, if you do not have the background of economy in your graduation or your intermediate, generally you will find it difficult to comprehend certain statements that come in the newspapers or certain study materials that is given to you. This is one subject I always suggest my students who do not have economy as their basic subject in the graduation. They should have a vocabulary, a terminology of economic concepts, so that whenever they are coming across these words, they can better understand what is the message of that article or what is the message of that particular sentence per se. Okay. So with this intention, this throughout the week, maybe for 4 days or 5 days, I will try to cover all the dimensions related to economy through terminology. You will see that we will go through the entire economy in a very simplified way. This is basically intended to give you a brief introduction. Where I will leave, SK Jha sir will take over. Say if at all, for example, I speak about agricultural productivity. I will only talk about what is agricultural productivity, what are the various factors that influence agricultural productivity. Now what are the various issues in the agricultural productivity, those kind of things sir will take on from there. So that the intention is when he comes from Delhi to take a class on economy, because he uses high terminology in his vocabulary, so you should not be feeling things are going over your head. So with that intention, we generally do this economic terminology, starting with that so that you can take off easily, right. First and the foremost, wherever anybody is not understanding anything, raise your hand, ask me, I will explain it again, maybe I will change the dimension of explanation also. Okay? I sincerely do not agree with this word, but I have been forced to write this word, okay? But I do not agree. At the end of the sessions, you will agree with me. See, when we talk about terminology, these are some of the dimensions I will be covering. You will see maximum terminologies that we will cover today and tomorrow would be from these two sectors, the sectors of the economy, the various sectors. How many sectors are there in the Indian economy? We generally say there are 3 sectors, right? What are these 3 sectors? Primary sector, secondary sector and the tertiary sector. These are the 3 sectors. So many words which are being used in this particular sector, I will be dwelling upon that. And also public finance. When we use the word public finance, what does it mean? The money that the government spends for various functions of the state. It could be anything. So whatever the government spends the money for fulfilling various functions of the states as the responsibility of the government, it all comes under the public finance. Various vocabulary related to taxation, what is progressive taxation, what is regressive taxation, what is a tax holiday, all these things we will also discuss in this particular section. Banking and finance, there are hell lot of terminologies. This will again take maybe a day or day and a half to cover all the terminologies related to banking. Call money, what is the concepts related to monetary policy, the various dimensions of financial market, the capital market, stock market, the government finance, what the RBI gives to the government, all those things we will try to cover under this heading. Foreign trade, yes, there are some tricky terminologies in the foreign trade. So I will dwell upon that in detail also. Terminologies like what is your anti-dumping duty, what is voluntary restraint. Anybody heard of this word, voluntary restraint? Anti-dumping duty, voluntary restraint, trade barriers, tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers, all these dimensions we will be covering in this. Voluntary restraint, anybody heard of this word? Voluntary restraint. Voluntary restraint. So for example, whenever a ship starts from China, India heartbeat starts. Pata nahi kya bhej raha hai. Yes or no? Whenever a ship loaded with all goods and material, when it starts from China, generally there is an element of skepticism in the heart of India. Pata nahi kitna saman bhej raha hai. Pata nahi he is probably trying to dump something into India. So what China will intelligently do is, because the moment India feels insecure, before the goods come, I will levy anti-dumping duty. Yes or no? To avoid the dumping of goods in my economy or my territory. So what China will intelligently do, before the good starts from China, it will say, India, don't worry, I am sending 20 tons of these kind of pens, or maybe 10,000 types of these kind of pens, or any stationery item. So that India exactly knows what is coming, and he is telling, beyond this I will not send. So it means that he is putting a voluntary restraint on himself in exporting a particular good to a country with an intention to give some breather to the importing country, that it is not dumping, he is only sending a particular quantity of goods. So we will try to dwell upon these type of concepts in much more detail. Financial and capital markets you have discussed. Economic reforms have some kind of tricky terminologies. When we come to that chapter, that also we will cover. The first terminology, agricultural productivity. Whenever you hear this word, agricultural productivity, what is the implication? It says that it is the amount of agricultural output in a given piece of land, area or country. See, many a times you will come across this word, India's agricultural production has reduced, India's agricultural output of wheat has reduced, because of the delayed monsoons, India's so and so production has got negatively affected. So when you come across this word in UPSC, understand there are two words, we'll come across that in the coming slides also. There are two words, macro and micro. There are two words, macro and micro. Micro is any economic activity at individual level. See, first and foremost, what is economics you have to understand. What is the canvas of economics? It is that part of knowledge area which is dealing with production, consumption and transfer of wealth. Please make a box and write three things. If they happen, it is economics: production, consumption or transfer of wealth. Production, consumption and transfer of wealth. If any of these three items are happening, it means that it comes under the purview of economics: production, consumption and transfer of wealth. What is happening here? Maybe production, consumption also, and maybe transfer of wealth also. What is happening here? Public finance, transfer of wealth, the government money coming into the market in multiple dimensions, transfer of wealth. Again, taxation is a classic example of transfer of wealth. Banking and finance, transfer of wealth. Foreign trade, production, sale and transfer of wealth. Financial and capital markets, transfer of wealth from one hand to other hand. Economic reforms, anything that have a negative or positive impact, again will result in a transfer of wealth. So any activity in the complete economic scale where there is production, consumption or transfer of wealth, it is nothing but your economics. Say for your mother at home, your mother is there at home, she is also working, but is she paid anything for her work? No. So what is not happening there? The transfer of wealth is not happening there. So that is the reason why it does not come under economy. Say your father is working, he is getting the salary. So what is happening here? The transfer of wealth from the company to your father's account, it is happening. So it will come under the purview of economics. So that you need to understand. So when we talk about agricultural productivity, it says that the agricultural produce in a given piece of land, area or economy as a whole. Why I am talking about this particular piece of land also? Why? Because what are the factors that affect the agricultural output? What are the factors that affect the agricultural output? What is the first and the foremost important factor that affect the agricultural output? The quality of land, the fertility of the land. This is one most important. The fertility of the land. What else? Then the quality of seed. The quality of seed. Yes, the quality of seed. Then after the quality of seed, one more important dimension, the irrigation support, the water support or the irrigation support. What else? What else? What else? After the irrigation, fertilizer support. You have to put some fertilizers to the land, no? Only the rainwater or the irrigation water will not give you the desired agricultural output. So you need to complement water with fertilizers also. You may need some pesticides also to control the pests. What else? One more important factor, you guys are not telling that. That affects the fertility or the productivity of the agricultural land. Cropping pattern, very very good, excellent. The cropping pattern is also very important. It also has a positive or negative effect on the overall agricultural productivity. Now, whenever you come across this word agricultural productivity, automatically all these dimensions should come into your mind. Whenever sir is talking about agricultural productivity, or even if I am taking any lectures on economy, the moment I use the word agricultural productivity, you should all be aware, because in this syllabus it says Indian agricultural productivity. It means any dimension which is related to this is part of your examination syllabus. So what are the factors? The fertility of the land, the quality of the seeds, the irrigation on the support, the fertilizers, the pesticides, and the cropping pattern. And one more somebody said, the weather, very important. Delhi, you remember this time it was in news a month before, because of the extreme heat conditions in North India, the wheat output in the entire northern India got negatively affected. So weather also plays an importance in the agricultural productivity. So per unit area of land, productivity drastically fell because of the extreme heat conditions. So that is how even weather also has a negative or positive impact on the agricultural productivity. When you hear about agricultural productivity, one dimension you all should remember is that in India, agriculture is mostly monsoon dependent, very very important. The agriculture in India, the sowing season is aligned with the monsoon season. It means that if the monsoon get delayed, your agricultural productivity may get negatively affected. If the monsoon is too harsh, if it is resulting into flash floods, so then also you cannot do certain cropping or sowing. So that is the reason why monsoon also has positive or a negative impact on your agricultural productivity. Anybody wants to ask anything on this particular type? One more dimension you need to remember is, when we talk about agricultural productivity, it is not even throughout the country. You understand the meaning of even? It means that maybe 1 acre of land in Punjab, it is giving you say 2 tons of wheat production. Maybe in UP it is more than 2 or it could be less than 2. So it means that the agricultural productivity is not even throughout the country. So it is uneven, very very important. And this unevenness could be a result of many factors. The fertility of the land could be different. The mechanization of agriculture is also an important factor in your agricultural productivity. The mechanization of agriculture. The larger the land holding, it is easier to use mechanization of agriculture. So even the size of land holding has a direct impact on the agricultural productivity. What is that? Size of land holding. Who will repeat all the factors that will affect the agricultural productivity, either positive or negative? Come on, come on. Good. In this entire thing, where are we mostly dependent on imports? One is the seed, the second is the fertilizers and the pesticides. These are the 3 dimensions where we are even dependent on the quality of imports. It means that Indian agriculture has a direct bearing on the export or import policy of the government of your country. Any change in the export import policy has a direct bearing on the agricultural productivity. Say tomorrow, now it is in news, no, current affairs, the government is encouraging people to grow dragon fruit. अरे करंट अफेयर्स पढ़ भी रहे हो, ड्रैगन फ्रूट Government is asking people to, which is the state producing the maximum amount of dragon fruit? Very good. कोई नहीं पढ़ रहा है current affairs. You have to read. The Mizoram is the leading state in the production of dragon fruit. So now, when the dragon fruit is produced in large numbers in large areas of land, what will happen to the agricultural productivity of the dragon fruit? It will increase. If the agricultural produce increases, what will happen to the price? It will come down. The intention is to stabilize the price of the dragon fruit. So that is how all the decisions of the government will have a direct impact on your agricultural productivity. Government intervention, increasing the productivity of dragon fruit. There would be some particular crops which the government does not want the farmers to grow. What it will do? It will stop any kind of support to that particular crop. What will eventually result in the farmer will stop sowing that particular seed. So automatically the productivity of that particular crop is brought down. What is the classic example? What the government does not permit? The cultivation of opium. The cultivation of opium. It is a prohibited agricultural activity. So because government is prohibiting that agricultural activity, automatically the productivity of that opium comes down naturally. Okay. So this is all about your productivity. Various factors influence that we have discussed at length. Very important. Yeah. Now this word also you will keep hearing, commercialization of agriculture. What do you understand by the meaning of the word commercialization of the agriculture? Do you think agriculture has been commercial in ancient times also, or is it somebody introduced the concept of commercialization of agriculture? Though it was there, it was not in the large scale. Mostly we were doing self-sufficiency. The word is either self-consumption or self-sufficiency. See, you have heard this word, no? Famines. You heard this word, no? Famine. So many people, so many crores of people died in Bengal famine, the famous, famine that had occurred in India. Why do you think this famine would have occurred? Why do you think this famine would have occurred? What could be the reason? What could be the reason that this famine occurred and people died of starvation? Can you imagine that situation today? No, right? Why? Because the agricultural productivity has increased, because you have over a period of time effectively utilized all the factors that are responsible for a good agricultural activity. So now you are saying because of all these things there is no condition of famine today. But what was present erstwhile, that the condition of famine was not only prevalent but it was even frequent. It was not only once or twice. Every third, fourth, fifth year it was a famine like condition. So what was happening probably, that because of which the conditions were famine like? The change of crop. He says that because of the change of crop, it means when a farmer was initially growing maybe rice or wheat for his self-sufficiency or self-sustenance, he was forced not to grow rice or wheat. He was forced to grow something that will get more money to the person who was owning the land. So what it resulted in? It resulted in a drastic reduction in the agricultural productivity. In this scenario, the farmer and his family was not left with anything to eat and survive, which resulted in a famine like condition. So what it says, commercialization of agriculture means the production of crops for sale in the market rather than for self consumption. So when do you grow the crops for sale in the market and do not do consumption? When do you do this? When you are getting more money for the cash crop, when you are getting more money. Now when you are getting more money for the cash crop, is this money going into the pocket of the farmer or the tiller? No. Whose pocket this is going into? Maybe the zamindar or the landlord whose land it is. So what it is leading to, on one side it is leading to a famine like condition, on the second side it is only increasing your inequality. It is increasing what? Inequality. And most of the situation, do you see who is this? He is an Indian? No. So he is a Britisher who was forcing the Indians to produce what can be sold at a higher rate in the international market, thereby not allowing him to grow something for his own self consumption, leading to a famine like situation. So biggest reason for the farmers' distress during the colonial period was the commercialization of agriculture. It also says that it started post 1813. This is also the time period, if you know the European medieval Indian history, it is the time period of first industrial revolution, 1815 to 1820. This is the first and second phase of industrial revolution in Britain. Why? Because they wanted certain crops as raw materials for their own production cycles. So they forced the Indian agricultural farmers to produce only those crops. Okay? And it was paramount during the 1860s. This is when this is the fag end of your second industrial production, and this was also the time when the Britishers were finding it difficult to generate revenue from other sources. So they were forcing more and more commercialization of agriculture, and it resulted in further inequality in the society, decline in food crop production and resultant famines. Now why there is no situation of famine in India today? One, the agricultural productivity is very high, and secondly, the government is ensuring something known as why people are not dying of starvation in the same magnitude what was happening during the Britishers. You have something known as food security, where the government is trying to give the poor people food through a policy called targeted public distribution system, where at highly subsidized rate basic food grains are distributed to the poor people, and also through one is through food security, the financial support of minimum support price, MSP. We'll talk about that, all those things in much more length, don't worry. Okay? So the targeted public distribution system, the minimum support price also the government is promising to give them. That is the reason why. And one more thing that the government is ensuring is buffer stocking. Very, very important concept. It will be taught to you at much more detail during the agriculture chapter. Buffer stocking. Very, very important. What do you mean by buffer stocking? To face any famine like situation where in a particular year for some weather conditions, or maybe the country is going for war, large area of your agricultural field got destroyed, to overcome that period of time, the government ensures buffer stocking of various foods and grains. What is the buffer stocking limit of agriculture? What is the buffer stocking limit of wheat? You should be knowing all these things in due course of time. That's the intention. Okay? Anything in this particular commercialization of agriculture? Anybody has any doubt? You are free to ask. In the commercialization of agriculture, who gained the maximum in the process of commercialization of agriculture? The Britishers or the landlord or the zamindar. And who lost the maximum? Either the farmer or the tiller, who in fact the inequality also increased, the famine like condition also increased, negatively affecting the farmer. Okay? Developing country. You will come across this word the maximum time probably. Developing country. There are some words that you will come across. Developing country, developed country, least developed countries. Who gives the tag of a least what you call developed country? Who gives the tag? Who gives the tag? Who classifies a particular country as a least developed country? Who does? Excellent. The United Nations classifies, but who classifies developing country or developed country? You said the least developed economy. it is called LDE, the least developed economy, is a classification of a country. We all agreed that United Nations classifies a particular country as a least developed economy. Now the question is, who is classifying? The WTO classification is not developing countries or developed countries. WTO does not use this classification, World Bank does not use this classification. It uses the classification least developed economy, low income economy, then high income economy. In this low income, one more category is middle income economy is there. So these are the 4 classifications which World Bank uses. But the classification of the LDE is done by the United Nations. Remaining 3 classifications, the countries themselves declare what kind of countries they are. This you need to understand. The reason is, say for example India calls itself a developing country, yes or no? But many a times you will see in news that Trump did not agree that India is a developing country. Right, our good friend, no? He said India is not a developing country. Technically China is also a developing country, but Trump said no, China is not a developing country. So what was the premise that he is saying that a particular country is developed country or not? What is the criteria? As I told you, the World Bank said you classify yourself. The WTO said you declare yourself what country you are. Let people contest. Let people contest. Let the other countries contest. But you can still go ahead with your what you call tag. If there is a contestation, the contestation is between those 2 countries. That is how there was a direct contestation between US and China, between US and India. So that is where these, what World Bank or WTO are saying, you resolve it bilaterally whether they agree with your classification or not. I have given my classification, UN is saying. Nobody can deny this classification of United Nations. The reason why the United Nations does this classification is because of their very poor economic condition. No country can put any kind of barriers to trade while trading with a least developed country. You cannot say if something is Nairobi is trying to export something to America, America cannot put any trade barrier. It cannot say your import duty is 200%, you cannot import. That because the classification of a least developed economy is given by whom? The United Nations. He has to accept that classification and give free market access to Nairobi. Very very important word, market access. 1 घंटे की class है only on the word market access. So he has to give free market access to Nairobi because it has been mandated by the United Nations. But when it comes to from these 3 category of countries, the country is independent to choose whether to give that status or not to that country. World Bank classifies the country based on per capita income. So it says low income 1040, low income is below 1046, okay. Lower middle income $1046 to $4095. This is per capita income. Upper middle income 4096 to 12695 and higher income is higher than 12695. This data is updated every year. It is updated in 2021, 22 is still awaited. So as per this, India comes under which bracket? What is the GDP of India? Per capita income of India? Per capita income, income per individual. The entire income of the country divided by population, you will get the per capita income. Okay? Per capita means per head, what is the income? India's per capita income is roughly around $1900. GDP, total output $1900. But when we look at from the PPP perspective, purchasing power parity perspective, I will talk about this at length, it is around 6390 if I remember correctly. So it means as per the absolute terms, India is a lower middle income country, but as per PPP terms, India is a upper limit income country. This is what Trump was saying. If I see the purchasing power parity of India, India is an upper middle income country and I will not give any benefits to India, which benefits I will give to other developed countries. So that is how some benefits India was getting while trading with United States, they were all withdrawn, quoting this particular figure as the example, right? So there is some things which he withdrew. Maybe day after tomorrow or day after I will try to talk about that. Okay? Now, there are some features a developing country will showcase. The first feature that a developing country will showcase is the dependence on agriculture, higher dependence on agriculture as the major economic activity in that country. If you see dependence on agriculture, more and more people are depending. What is the percentage of population of India that is dependent on agriculture today? Agriculture and allied activities, dairying, something like that, okay? Anybody? Around close to 50% of the population is still under that, okay? The second he is saying is, we will have a lesser developed industrial base. The industrial base of India is still not that developed when compared with other countries. So India under this category also falls under the developing country. The human development index, there is a separate slide for this. There are some parameters to judge the human development index of a country. So based on that parameters also, that country may not be performing well relative to other countries, and higher dependence on agriculture and allied activities. So what are the characteristic features of a developing country? One is agriculture, higher dependence on agriculture. Second is a small or a lesser industrial base. Third is not performing that very good on the HDI index, human development index, when compared to the developed countries. These are the three basic traits which a developing country will showcase. Now you tell me, when you are developing country, what is the problem? When you classify yourself as a developing country, why the developed countries are facing problem? Why they are saying no, you are not a developing country, you are a developed country? So that they can instigate trade barriers while trading with you. They can stop your goods and services from exporting to that country. They can put higher duties, higher taxes on the goods that you are exporting to that country. That is the intention. They contest your position of yourself claiming to be a developing country, okay? What is a developed country? Exactly opposite. Lower dependence on agriculture, better performance in the HDI index, and thirdly, a strong or a larger industrial base. Based on that, these are some of the countries like Australia, Belgium, US, UK, Canada, Germany, they are all. And what do you think is the biggest factor that is making them developed and me developing? Exactly, population. Because though you are trying to, you are developing 8%, 7%, 10% per year, no? Your growth rate is 8%, 10%, 7%. The growth rate of America is 1%, 2%, 2.5%. But why we are not able to catch them? Because of the higher number of population. Because whatever is your output, the denominator is high. The population figures are very, very high. That is the reason why the per capita income of China and India both is low, despite we trying to do good on various economic factors. We continue. So till such time you cannot control your population at an optimal level, you will continue to be a developing economy because of the higher population, what you call numbers in your country, right? Yeah, this is demographic analysis, very, very important. See, why a demographic understanding of the demography of, what do you understand by the word demography? Demography से क्या समझते हो? What do you understand by the word demography? Why only working age population? Why only working age population? If somebody is not working, they will not form part of your demography. Huh? Chalo, now that you have said working age population, what is the bracket of working age population?
16 to 40.
Somebody said. ठीक है? Right to education till 14 years. Pensionary from 60 years. So that is why 15 to 59 is your workforce. When you count your workforce, this is the bracket that you use. Don't worry, with the blink of eye, you will reach that. ठीक है, the time lapses very fast when you grow old. Now see, why I want to know, why I want to analyze my demography, what is the intention of government wanting to know there are how many males, there are how many females, there are how many kids, there are how many what you call elders, how many sick, how many died, what is the age group, what is the sex group, why is it government interested? Why is the government interested in knowing there are how many females, how many pregnant, how many recently born, how many less than 5 years? What is the intention?
Like they need the next, they are planning to change
it. What is the intention of the government in knowing the sex ratio, what is the literacy rate, what is the unemployment rate, what is the what you call workforce population? What is the intent of the government? What is government trying to look from that data? What it, huh? Be specific. Yeah. It is basically, see, wants are unlimited, resources are limited. ये हमने स्कूल में पढ़ा था. Human wants are unlimited, but the resources to satisfy those wants are limited. The same is the case with the government also. The responsibility of the government is unlimited, but the resources at the disposal of the government are very, very limited. If the resources are limited, if you do not have this data, you cannot channelize, very, very important, you cannot channelize that limited resource to target that particular demography. So for that particular purpose, the government at regular intervals carries out this demographic classification of data. Who is what, when people are born, what is the age group, what is the sex ratio, what is the literacy rate, what is the skill rate, all these things the government want to get data at regular intervals so that the resources at the disposal of the government can be channelized according to the need of a particular section of the society. It says that demographic data refers to socio-economic information expressed statistically, including employment, education, income, marriage, birth, death, and many more dimensions of human capacity. So this is primarily required so that the resource can be allocated based on the requirement of that particular section of the society. One more slide, just try to understand. Now there is a word called demographic transition. There are 5 stages of demographic transition. Just try to concentrate here. In the first stage of demographic transition, you will see that the birth rate is high, the death rate is also high. In the second stage, the birth rate is high, but the death rate is falling rapidly. What is the reason why the death rate could be falling rapidly? Better living conditions, better medical support facilities, so better quality of food. So all these factors will contribute in reduced death rate, right? When the country was born as an independent nation, the birth rate, the death rate was 35 to 40. It means people generally used to die in the bracket of 35 to 40. But now what is the average lifespan? 67, 68 is the average lifespan today. It means because of certain health conditions improving over a period of time, the medical facilities improving over a period of time. If the government did not have this data, could it concentrate on the health outcomes? No. So for that particular purpose, because the government knows that the death rate is 37 to 38 years, I need to concentrate on the health of the people. So that is how some schemes, some policies, some measures would have been implemented in that particular area, leading to better health facilities, finally resulting in falling death rate. Third is the birth rate also falling, and the death rate, the steepness of falling slows down. The steepness of falling slows down. The birth rate is also falling, but the death rate is there, but it is slowly falling. So in this particular stage, this is the stage actually where your population is coming under slight control. The growth of population is coming under slight control. India is in between second and third stage now. Because of earlier 6 to 7, if you ask your parents, generally you will see 6 to 7 brothers and sisters. In your generation, maybe 2. The present generation, hardly 1. Why it is happening? Because there are so many factors that are responsible for that. Like my father, they were 11 full cricket team. We were only 3 of us. Maybe the next generation is only 1 or may not be 1 also. Okay? So it depends on so many factors. So what it is actually happening, the birth rate is getting controlled. What is the fourth stage? The birth rate is also low, the death rate is also low. When will the birth rate become low here? When will the birth rate will become low here? 2 factors. One, the productivity of the couples will come down. There are many various factors for that. And secondly, the economic activity, the indulgence of both the couples in the economic activity will also bring down the productivity levels overall in the entire country. So this is where most of the advanced countries are there. Most of the advanced countries, maybe another 50-60 years we will also land up there. So that is how you will see even in the present generation also, many couples married for 8 years, 10 years, they are not looking forward for a child. So when they are not looking forward for a child, automatically the birth rate is coming under control. So there are 5 stages like this, and lastly, this is the stage when the birth rate will drastically reduce. One example is China tried to reach from here to here directly. This is one example where China tried to reach from stage 2 of demographic transition directly to stage 5 by bringing a policy called one child policy, right? By bringing a policy called one child policy. Now they are relaxing that policy because they want to go back to either 4 or the third stage of demographic transition. The next slide will clear up things much better. Right? Not here. Yeah. Just see. We will talk about demographic dividend, don't worry. See, basically the demographic dividend is nothing but the maximum working age population, right? The start of demographic dividend for India started in the year 2018. But for Japan, the demographic dividend started in the year 1964 and ended in the year 2004. Now what is the fear of China? It is ending in, started in, and when is India's demographic dividend phase ending? So till 2055, India will have a demographic dividend advantage. What is that demographic dividend advantage? Maximum people under the employability age. Demographic dividend, as defined by the United Nations Population Fund, is the economic growth potential that can result from a shift in the population's age structure, mainly when the share of the working age population is larger than the non-working age population. So we said no, 15 to 59. So this is where we have the maximum chance. It started in 2018, it is there till 2055 for India. Okay. See, this is the projected population by 2030. We are going to overtake China. So 146 crores and 139 crores by 2030 India will take over. So that is how India's birth rate is still in this category. I told you we are somewhere here. That is the reason why, because we are somewhere there, that is the reason why you are in the 1461 bracket, 146 crore population. Okay? So that is how, just see, by 2020 you have a surplus labor force. What is happening to China? Deficit labor force. You are not getting people to work for you. That is the problem that will happen in China. US also -17. That is the reason why more and more people are migrating to US to work there. So that is how things are happening. Whatever you are seeing as part of daily activity in your life around you, it is all determined by some economic dimensions. They are underplaying that. The reason why people are going to US is not because you want to go to US, because US wants you to come and work in US to cover this gap of minus 17. The day this gap of minus 17 is covered, do you think US will allow you to come and work there? It will not allow. So it has got its own selfish interest in allowing you to come and work in US. That's very, very important. Yeah. Occupational structure in our economy, as we have discussed earlier, there are primarily three occupational structures: the primary activity, the secondary activity, and the tertiary activity. Very, very important slide. You have to understand that other than agriculture, other activities like forestry, fishery, animal husbandry, poultry, etc. come under the primary activities. Very, very important. In this here, there is a small caveat related to mining and all. When the sir will take a class, he will clear that. Certain dimensions of mining come under primary activity, certain dimensions come under the manufacturing, that is the secondary activity. And the manufacturing industries which are comprised of both the small scale as well as the large scale. Please underline the word, both the large scale and the small scale will come under the what you call secondary activity. Very, very important. And lastly, all other activities like communication, transport, trade, insurance, banking, etc. form the crust of your tertiary activity. Now, we all know that India jumped from here to here. Yes or no? School mein padhaya tha. India skipped the manufacturing sector. Generally, when a country travels from developing country to a developed country, we said developed country ka the industrial base is larger. We said no, the industrial base is larger. We are on the path of trajectory from developing country to a developed country, but still our industrial base is not going larger. Why India leapfrogged from primary to tertiary? What enabled India to leapfrog from primary to secondary? Internet.
We don't have the proper infrastructure.
I am not asking why manufacturing did not develop. I am asking why you leapfrog. What enabled you to leapfrog from primary to tertiary?
High profits. Globalization. Dependent on other countries.
No. See, I am not saying why this suffered. I am saying why, what enabled you to leapfrog from primary to tertiary. One word answer. The link lies in the demography. He said large population. But large population what? What brought this? You know what was the illiteracy rate of women when India became independent? In 1947, the illiteracy rate of women was 92%. It means 92% of your females were not able to read and write. Now today, the literacy levels of females are better than the males. So when that has happened, people got an opportunity directly to leapfrog from primary to tertiary. If you see in all this sector, this has got a direct bearing, that is literacy and education. Because of the natural skill set for certain type of roles and responsibilities, and with a higher population in the demographic dividend transitionary phase, you got an opportunity to leapfrog from primary to secondary. There are certain things, other things also happen. When I come to that slide, I link it up there. Okay? Are anything? People are sleeping, yawning. Economy class mein yawning is it can face death penalty also to you. ठीक है, कैपिटल पनिशमेंट. हाँ, कैपिटल पनिशमेंट होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए? हाँ, व्हाट इज योर ओपिनियन अबाउट कैपिटल पनिशमेंट? कौन बताएगा? संध्या, you tell sir it should be there, it should not be there. It should be there. Good, you will make a good bureaucrat. Yeah, anybody else? Rarest of the rare cases the capital punishment should be there, but we are talking about a more accommodative society, no? So from that ethical perspective you are again going back, because the state is not supposed to act the same way the individual has acted, no? आ गया ethics बीच में? Huh? How many countries in the world, that those countries who have removed capital punishment as a form of punishment, which are the various countries in the world? What are the various forms of executing capital punishment? Capital punishment. नाना पाटेकर्स मूवी. कैपिटल पनिशमेंट मतलब पैसा देना नहीं है. हेलो गुरु प्रसाद, ठीक है? There are many ways. The very beautiful old Hindi movie on capital punishment. I'll take 2 minutes to narrate. Just see the intensity of the movie. There is a person who is called a Jallad, the person who does this finally, no? Who removes the platform on which a person is made to stand before hanging. So this guy happens to be the best Jallad ever. So he finally he decides that he will retire one day, and he retires. He goes back home. His son gets what you call accused of a heinous crime, and the government penalizes him with capital punishment. So this guy who has retired, he applies for reinstation to execute his son for the last time, because he feels that this job cannot be done by anybody better than me, and I do not want my son to suffer more. Just see the underlining, the thought process. He comes back, he executes his son and takes permanent retirement. So just imagine, when capital punishment, when you think from the ethical dimension, how things unfold, when you think from the practical dimension, how things unfold. You will get goosebumps, right? Your father executing his own son, thinking that he is the person who can execute him the best with the least possible pain. So that is how you have to understand the underlying principle. Abhi sare jaag gaye? Very good. Chalo. The aim is achieved. Yeah. We have done this. We have done this. Yeah. Very important. Most important slide of the entire week's lecture. See, every country has to answer these 3 questions. Most important 3 questions of KBC. The KBC is economics here, right? What is, what goods and services to be produced? How should the goods and services to be produced, and how should the goods and services be distributed? Now, what, how, all part of your economy, the definition of economics, or yes or no? Depending on what answer you give to this each question, what kind of an economy you are is determined. When you answer, if this question is what goods and services to be produced, if it is the government that is deciding, it is becoming a particular kind of economy. If the market is determining, it is becoming a particular type of economy. How should the goods and services be produced? Is it the labor intensive goods and production, or it is the technological way of production? There also the answer changes and the form of economy structure changes. How should the goods and services be distributed? It should be only revenue generation basis, or it should be some social distribution basis. Based on that also the form of structure that you will adopt as an economy will change. So what to produce, who will produce, and how it will be distributed. Very important question in economy. The capitalist society, very important. What it says, only those consumer goods will be produced that are in demand, so that what I will get money. The capitalist society says, I will produce only those things that are in demand, somebody is ready to pay for it. I am not bothered whether it is good, bad, ugly, good for society, good for youth, bad for youth, good for health, not good for health. McDonald's knows that what it is producing is not good for health for people, but is it stopping itself from producing that? No. Why? Because it is determined by a only consideration that it is getting me money, right? Yes or no? Now, goods are distributed based on purchasing power and not on the basis of what people need. So when the distribution is happening in a capitalist society, the goods are not distributed for a social cause. They are only distributed based on the purchasing power of that particular country. So this determines a capitalist society. One, only those goods which are in demand, for which the people are ready to pay the money, will be produced. Secondly, they will be distributed. The distribution part of the economics is purely based on the purchasing power parity, the purchasing power capacity of that particular country. When we talk about UPSC, economics in UPSC, we only deal at macro level. We will not talk anything at individual level. So we only talk about country level dynamics. We will not talk about individual level dynamics. Even if I take an example of an individual level dynamics, it is primarily to make you understand the concept. But when we come to the lecture proper, we will only talk at the macro level, that is the complete economy level or the country level, right? So what is a capitalist society? A society where the goods and services are produced purely based on demand and the willingness and the capacity of the people to pay for that particular good or service. And secondly, it is not intended just for distribution for a social cause. Based on the purchasing power capacity of that individual, the distribution activity will happen. Okay? Now, the same dimensions will change in a socialist society. Earlier, what was the factor of production? What was the factor of consideration for production? Demand. If the demand is there, supply will be there. Is he giving anything to him? They are standing with a begging bowl. This is me standing behind him, and this is America or Britain in case of India. So he ate all the money. It is said you are trying for a 5 trillion economy, right? India is trying for a 5 trillion economy. Before India became independent, Dadabhai Nauroji said that the Britishers have taken $45 trillion from India in those 170 years. It means that $45 trillion of 1940s, आज की डेट में कितना ट्रिलियन डॉलर्स होगा? You just imagine. There is a small video of 10 to 15 minutes of Shashi Tharoor on how the Britishers looted India. Please go back and watch that video. The English is fantabulous, that is one thing. Secondly, just try to jot down the information that he is giving. Each and every sector of the economy he is explaining there, 15 to 16 minutes of video, but you will feel so angry with the Britishers that they spoiled your economy completely. They spoiled your economy completely. Okay? Yeah, anybody?
From our NCRT also we can see the same.
Yes, yes. From NCRT also you can see, from history you can see, from my classes you can see. Yeah. Socialist society. He is our Russian brother. What it says? Who is deciding? Who is deciding here? It is the government that is deciding. In the capitalist society, who was deciding? The demand was deciding. But in socialist society, the government decides what goods to be produced. The premise is that the government knows better what is good for the people. Very, very important. The Modi style ho gaya, right? The government knows better what is good for the people. The government decides how goods have to be produced. Very, very important. What, how, this is what, this is how, and third is distribution. He is not only deciding how and what, he is deciding also the distribution pattern also, how the goods have to be distributed. Distribution is based on what is needed rather than on the capacity to pay. You might have the capacity to pay for 10 kgs of wheat flour, but you will be given only 500 grams, that is enough for your family to survive till tomorrow. So you will be given only how much? Only 500 grams of wheat flour. Though you have the capacity to pay for 10 kgs, you will not be given that 10 kgs. That is the premise of socialism. This is what Mao Zedong did during the Mao Zedong era in China, purest form of communism, where people will be paid, everybody will come to the field, they will work in the field because an agrarian economy, they will work in the field, whatever is sufficient for them to survive till tomorrow, only that much food grains will be given. Rest everything the government will take care, your health, everything the government will take care. You will go back home, sleep, if you are alive next day morning, you will come back again to work, you will work and you will take your food, go back again, sleep. There is no private owning of property. So one thing is ensured, equality in the society is ensured, because your capacity to pay is also controlled in communism. That is the biggest difference between socialism and communism. Here you may have the capacity to pay, but you will not be given those goods even if you have the capacity to pay. Strictly a socialist society has no room for private ownership of property. Though we use the example of Russia, China, North Korea, Philippines and some other countries as socialist economies, but we do not have any country in the world which is a pure socialist economy. It means that even in those countries, private ownership of property is prevalent. That is why I am using the word strictly. That is why I am using the word strictly. Okay? The capitalist who is determining the demand and how the distribution is happening based on the purchasing power capacity. But in socialism, how it is happening? Based on what you need rather than based on your capacity to pay. And who is determining what is to be produced? The government. And how much is to be produced? Again the government, right? That's the difference. The socialist pattern of the economy is also called as command economy. The word generally some of the newspapers uses command economy, where all these things are what you call controlled. They are giving example of North Korea, China, Russia, all those countries. Generally they give the example of. Okay? What to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, all these things would be decided by the government, and individual does not have any say in taking a decision what has to be produced, how it has to be produced, whether it is labor intensive or shall we use modern technology, or whom it has to be given. Nothing is decided by the individual, it is the government who decides. Now come to the third model, the mixed economy. What is he trying to mix? What is he trying to mix? Private, public, both. He is trying to mix private and public, both. Government and the market answer the three questions. What are the three questions? What, how and distribution. What? The government and the market. There is a combination. So it is a combination of capitalist model and also a socialist model, right? In a mixed economy, market will provide whatever goods and services it can produce well. The government will provide the essential goods and services which the market fails to do so. Because the market, it does not mean the market is incapable. Probably the market is not seeing that profit in producing those goods. Those goods will be provided by the government, and these goods are nothing but your essential goods. The responsibility in a mixed economy to provide essential goods is of the government. Rest all goods are provided by the market. Example is India. Whatever is essential, food is essential, the government is giving food to the lower strata of the society. Basic health facility, primary health center, you don't have to pay anything. The government is paying or incurring the cost of maintaining or running that primary health center. So that is how the government is incurring that expenditure for all of us, But whatever the market is providing, it is providing for the services where the individual has the capacity to pay, So in our country, you will also have a primary health center and you will also have a multi-speciality hospital. So the government will take care of the primary health center and the market will take care of the multi-speciality hospital. So this is the classic example of a mixed economy, and India is one of the most classic examples of a mixed economy. So what all we have covered till now? From starting agricultural productivity, after that commercialization of agriculture, good. After that demographic analysis, then we spoke about demographic dividend, then we talked about occupational structure, primary, secondary, tertiary, then we spoke about the economic systems, wherein we try to understand the economic systems from three questions: what to produce, how to produce, and whatever has been produced, how to distribute this based on the demand, based on the capacity to pay, or the understanding of the government. Okay? Based on that, the world is classified into three categories: capitalist, socialist, and a mixed economy. Chalo, very good. Intelligent crowd here. Yeah. Now, this is another classification of, or another way of classifying an economy called market economy. Now listen to me. See, when you call an economy as a market economy, it means that whatever is demanded, whatever has to be supplied, whatever is the demand, whatever has to be supplied, it is controlled by the market forces of demand and supply alone. The government will not interfere. It means if you are asking for guns, I will produce guns and give you. The government will not interfere. If you are asking for food, I will produce food and sell you. The government will not come into the picture of the market. So if a market is purely driven by the market forces of demand and supply, it is called a market economy. The classic example of a market economy is the United States. In any way, it will not intervene. If the people are asking for drugs, give them drugs. That is how the government says, I will not interfere. This is just an example I am giving. If the people are asking for drugs, the government will give drugs. But in an economy, in a market economy also, there will be a classification of restricted goods. There will be a classification of restricted goods. If the good that is demanded does not fall under the classification of restricted good, the government will not interfere. The classic example is gun. Gun is not a restricted item in US. So if in US, a recently born boy, born in the morning, you can go and buy a bazooka weapon on his name. So now how that boy is using that weapon, nobody is questioning, because the government says each and every individual can possess a weapon for his self-defense. Whether that newly born boy can hold the gun and fire the gun, nobody is questioning. The government does not want to interfere, because it is what? It is a market economy. It says that a market economy is an economic system where the two forces known as the supply and the demand direct the production of goods and services. Here there is no intervention by the government. It is only the two market forces of demand and supply. They are directing the production of a particular good and service. Market economies are not controlled by a central authority like a government and are instead based on voluntary exchange. Voluntary exchange means you give me the good, I will give you money or anything else in barter system. So it is a voluntary exchange. There is no restricted exchange. So it is called as voluntary exchange. Please make a note of this box, very important. See, what happens is, that is classification from a different sense. This is classification. Even in a capitalist society, the government can intervene, provided if it is a non-market economy. China is a classic example. It is a non-market economy with a capitalistic orientation, because it is now asking for more and more money. But in socialism we said money dimension is not existing. Everything the government is deciding. So it is showcasing capitalism on one side and it is showcasing non-market economy where it is controlling the market also. So this is the biggest problem between US and China. US says, China, you are not a market economy, you are a non-market economy. It means what has to be produced, how much it has to be produced, when it has to be produced, at what rate it has to be sold, you are determining. But now China is an intelligent country. What it says, World Trade Organization का जो clause है ना, it is fine reading that clause. In that clause, the word is majorly. they have used a word majorly. See, when China was accepted into the folds of so-called what you call World Trade Organization 2001 or 2002, China was in what you call accepted into the folds of World Trade Organization. When it was accepted in the WTO, it was made to sign an instrument called the Protocol of Accession. It was made to sign, and China was given 15 years time to convert from non-market economy to a market economy. It means China was given 15 years time to reduce its government's grip from the market. So the moment 2017 came, incidentally Trump was the president of United States of America. He immediately said, you were given 15 years of time to convert from non-market economy to market economy. So this 15 years, whatever trade exemptions you got, I will stop the trade exemptions and I will treat you as a non-market economy. If an economy is classified as a non-market economy, you can use some trade barriers while trading with that particular country. That is when China intelligently sent a Xerox copy of the draft of that protocol and accession. It used the word majorly. It said, yes, I control the market, but I do not do it majorly. So that is the bone of trade war between US and China, based on one single word, that is majorly. I am not disturbing what has to be produced, how it has to be produced, how it has to be distributed, how it has to be rated, how it has to be costed majorly. So that is how it is trying to escape. So now what is market economy? Everything directly controlled by the market forces of demand and supply. And what is non-market economy? What is the non-market economy? It is a administered price system. See, that is how. See, two are fighting, US and China. And here, clear market economy. Nobody. The board is market economy. You can come, you can produce whatever is people demanding. You come, you produce. I have no problem. But here that is not the case. Everything is administered. Even the pricing is administered. And also the production is also administered. How much it has to be produced, when it has to be produced, when the production has to be stopped. All these things happen in the non-market economy. In today, one of the classic examples of a non-market economy is the Chinese economy. Okay? There is a word called comparative advantage. Tomorrow I will try to explain that word in much more detail. But try to understand that China has a comparative advantage. The comparative advantage is population. The comparative advantage is a higher stage of industrialization. When you have both together, obviously the cost per unit of production will go down drastically. If the cost per unit of production is going down drastically, it means your goods will be the cheapest in the international market. Yes or no? So that is how China is reaping the benefits of this comparative advantage for the last 15-20 years. And the result of this comparative advantage is the economic rise of China. As I told you in one of the earlier classes also, when a country economically rises, immediately the military rise of that country will also happen. And in an established scenario where only US was the economically rich and a militarily strong country, suddenly you see one more country becoming economically rich and militarily strong. So in international relations, the PSAR, there is a concept called Thucydides trap. We call it Thucydides trap. So this is when the problem is coming. Both America and China are in Thucydides trap, basically trying to find out who is the strongest in the world. So that is how both are in the trap of each other. So when they become trapped, these kind of problems do emerge. ठीक है? अरे कुछ समझ में आ रहा है कि नहीं? Thucydides trap. अरे क्यों PSI पढ़ना चाह रहे तू? हाँ मैं पढ़ाऊंगा, चिंता मत. See, that's what I am saying. The names are different from what perspective you use the name. It is purely economic perspective. That is political perspective also. It is only purely from the economic perspective. From the political perspective, you use socialist. From pure economic perspective, economic activity perspective, you say non-market economy. So you cannot use the word socialist economy there. You have to use the word non-market economy. ठीक है? Yeah. Anyone? मंजुनाथ, समझ में आ रहा है? तू 6.5 फीट का है, तेरे ऊपर से क्या जाएगा? कुछ नहीं जाएगा. हाँ. पवन. We have Pawan Kalyan also with us. Blockbuster. हाँ. What else? अरे हाँ. मैडम.
Sir, for suppose if we classify economy as a market economy and non-market economy,
Yeah.
In the sense they are the same as socialist and
Yes.
capital economy.
Yes.
Then how can we classify mixed economy?
Though there is no.
How will we define mixed economy?
When I come some more slides, that will come. In some places the government is interfering, in some places government is not interfering. In the economic activities also. So that is when you call it as a mixed economy. But there is no separate word purely from the. That is the reason why India is not a pure market economy. India is not a pure non-market economy. We are also interfering in some dimensions. What are those dimensions? Some more slides. In the currency fluctuation dimension, we are intervening. How we are intervening, I'll tell you. Okay? Yeah. One more dimension. मेरा और दिमाग खराब होने के लिए. Closed economy, open economy. What is this war? Anybody? What is this war? Yeah, opium war between China and Britishers. This is the photograph of the opium war. See, the Chinese historically were a closed economy. It means self-reliant. I will produce whatever I want. If I cannot produce, it is very clear my people will not get it, but I will not allow any import. So it is kind of a closing the boundaries of your country and not trading with any of the countries in the world. If somebody is following that policy of economy, it is called a closed economy. A closed economy is one that has no trading activity with outside economies. This is the classic example of your Qing dynasty. For 400 years they did not trade with anybody, but the Britishers were interested in the porcelain, they were interested in the silk, they were interested in tea from China, but the Chinese during the Qing dynasty were not interested in trading with the rest of the world. Then the closed economy is therefore entirely self-sufficient, which means no imports come into the country and no exports leave the country. In today's reference, North Korea is one of the most classic examples of a closed economy. No internet, no television, no other news channels. Whatever channel you will open, only he will be visible on the television. So that is how he is following a closed economic model. The most secret country in the world. Nobody knows what he is doing. They are calling, even if they are not self-sufficient, they are okay with it. Even if we are not self-sufficient, we don't need that particular product, but we are not going to import that product into our country. This is most important dimension of a closed economy. Let me tell you, before 1991, India also displayed the traits of a closed economy, because in most of the economic activity, we were not allowing the outside companies to come and trade in our country. That is the reason why before 1991, you had Ambassador, Premier, Padmini, only 2 types of cars. It is after that today you have 250 varieties of names of cars today. It is a classic example of India opening its economy. Okay? Yeah. What is open economy? The act of selling goods, or services to a foreign country is called exporting. Importing, if you are buying goods, it's called importing. Exporting and importing are collectively called international trade. We engage in international trade with the rest of the world, and open economy is a type of economy where not only domestic trade but also international trade in goods and services is freely permitted. So India is a classic example today of an open economy, but still there are some restricted list, the products that we still restrict from participating in that particular economic activity. The act of selling goods or services to a foreign country. Are we exporting? What are we exporting majorly? Don't say oil only, say processed oil. Our country is being used for processing. We are exporting. After importing, we are doing some processing and then we are exporting. What else we are exporting? IT services we are exporting. Good. We are sending people out now. Go to US, go to America, go to UK, reduce the population here, go and increase the population there. Agricultural products also we are what you call exporting, but mostly to the neighboring countries. Europe is one area that we are trying to hit, but he is not allowing. Trade barriers. In that, non-tariff barriers. We'll cover that dimension. Don't worry. What else? What we are exporting? Most important, you are not saying. Gems and jewelry. You are not exporting gold. There is a huge difference. You are exporting gems and jewelry. Gems and jewelry. Vipul Chokshi, famous name. One more dimension. Planned economy. कौन बताएगा what is a planned economy? What do you understand by planned economy? What is planned economy? What is planned economy? देख के नहीं बोलना, मारूंगा. हाँ. What is planned economy? Whatever we are planning is planned economy. हाँ. What is planned economy? Rajkumar, बोल. अरे कुछ तो बोलो यार. I love this silence though, but tell something. हाँ. What is planned economy? Come on, Sai, Shiv Sai. हाँ, Guru, बोल.
Economy which will be useful for the upliftment of the many people, like processing and resolving.
What is a plan?
Particular group.
How you decide to channelize what we said initially. I plan my expenses. It is not that tomorrow morning Modi decides 100 crore Telangana ko de do. Next day morning 50 वापस ले लो. It cannot happen like that, right? So things have to happen in a proper planned way. It says that a plan spells out how the resources of a nation should be put to use. Very, very important. India was a classic example. I am using the word was a classic example of planned economy, and what plan that we followed was a 5-year plan economy. We also had a 20-year plan economy that was called your perspective plan. 20 years we were, see, you will say, for example, there is something known as maternal mortality rate. What is this maternal mortality rate? The death of women during the course of her pregnancy. We call it maternal mortality rate. Now, as per the report of, say, for example, World Bank, India's maternal mortality rate is, say, 100 women for 1000 birth. This was the maternal mortality rate for 1 lakh birth, sorry. So, if we have to reduce this maternal mortality rate, we need to plan for 5 years or 20 years and ensure that at regular intervals funds are allocated to ensure that there is no mortality, maternal mortality. So it means that you have to extend what all benefits to this particular section. You have to give health facility, you will maybe have to give the rupee facility, you will have to provide her with good nutritious food, all these things. So these all dimensions come under your plan. So you plan and allocate resources. You take out a scheme, and based on that scheme for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, for 20 years, based on what kind of a plan that you are planning to do for that particular issue, you dole out your funds. So it has some general goals and objectives to be achieved within a specific period of time. When the money is released at that particular point of time, the government will say, by 2030, I want my maternal mortality rate to come down from 100 to 20, what you call deaths for 1 lakh births. That is my target. So based on that, I will give. the India's target to reduce poverty below this level by so and so time period. This is what will be taught to you in your classroom. So this is what your plan activity that is being discussed. The planners have to balance the goals, that is modern tech. One dimension, you talk about unemployment, and you know that if you go for modernization, the unemployment will increase because less number of people would be required for the what you call production process. This is when the planners have to balance both the things. You cannot escape modernization because it will result in unemployment. So you need to find other avenues to give people employment. So the planners have to balance between what they want to plan and what they want to achieve. So that balance has to be there. Like modern technology and employment quotient is one of the important balances. Okay? That is called a balance. This elasticity of demand and the further topics we will discuss tomorrow. पहले ही दिन so many topics, रेशमा घर जाके नींद की गोली खा के सो जाएगी, ठीक है, नहीं तो डिस्प्रिन की गोली खाएगी, सर में दर्द हो गया यार पहले ही दिन, ठीक है. Yeah, now whatever topics have been taught to you today, anybody having any doubt, please ask. When you go back home, rehearse them, revise them. Tomorrow when the class will start, I will ask questions individually. If somebody escapes the class, whenever they come to class, I will catch them then. ठीक है? हाँ.
Dark web has increased the scope of
ये कुछ तो पूछ रहा है यार ये. हाँ, डार्क वेब
has increased scope of market economy.
has increased the scope of what is the definition of market economy? कौन बताएगा? Market economy is the production of goods and services will happen purely based on demand and supply. He is saying dark web is nothing but he does some idiotic work in the dark web, so that is called the dark web. Okay, so now he says that can we say dark web is kind of increasing the scope of market economy? It means whatever is supplied in the dark web, it is as a result because there is a demand for that particular product. Now tell me, dark web is increasing the scope of market economy, yes or no? Strictly speaking, is it or not? It is yes. But though it is increasing the scope, it is not that the government is not trying to intervene. The government is trying to intervene to ensure that the otherwise restricted items are not sold on the scope of dark web. Though it is practically leading to the scope of increasing the market economy, but this is not supported by the government. But when you see the definition of market economy, the government is deliberately staying away. Here the government is not deliberately staying away, it is the incapacity to control which is actually resulting in the scope of market economy. If the government has the capacity to control, will it be a market economy? No, it will not be a market economy. So in the true sense we can say yes, it is resulting in, but it is not that the government wants the dark web to be what you call an enabler of a market economy. That's not the case. Okay? Yeah.
So the trap thing is trap. So can we use that word
In a GS answer.
no sir, like political sense, like one
You should use that word, otherwise number नहीं मिलेगा. There are so many traps in PSIR, many of them. ठीक है? तो जब PSIR पढ़ोगे तो बहुत सारी चीजें आएंगी. हाँ.
not only international based,
Come again.
not only international based, but we can use it in a local issue also.
In what sense? Can you give me an example?
Political when it comes to any party funding the people, or suppose let's take it as a central government and state government, they will be giving the subsidies to the people, physical subsidies to the people, and even in the local government they will be giving physical subsidies.
Yeah.
In this process, the people will be getting more advantages.
Yes.
So can we use it?
So इसमें threat का है. It is good
But it is threatened also, like
to whom?
physical subsidies are because we can't invest in the infrastructure.
No, why are you saying so? Now you are moving away from physical subsidy to the DBT, right? Because you said that in a physical subsidy there are so many loopholes. If you are sending 1 kg of wheat to a poor guy, by the time that 1 kg wheat reaches the poor guy, it is hardly 100 grams of wheat. So it is all going through loopholes. Now I am using the direct benefit transfer, wherein I am ensuring that that poor guy is transferred 42 rupees because the rate of wheat today is 42 rupees. Right? And now you cannot say that this is creating a trap between the state government and, because there are some items which are in the union list, there are some items in the state list, there are some items in the concurrent list. The things that are there in the concurrent list, the central government will also provide support, the state. So there is a competition in welfare. Good. Who is benefiting at the end of the day? The end consumer is benefiting. So it is good. In a welfare society, this kind of competitive spirit is accepted. It is accepted because we know that he is the one who is affected.
Every matter is
Not every matter. Not every matter. Where it is, many a times what happens, because of the political underpinnings, the central government tries to get into the domain of state government and tries to do with an intention to influence the vote bank. It does that. It happens. So we are still a developing democracy. We are not a mature democracy. So these kind of things will happen. Okay? Yeah.
Developing countries and developed countries are declared by themselves.
Themselves. The classification is done by themselves.
If they can declare them as a developed country, if they have to face the trade barriers, right?
Yes. That is the reason why, even though you are closer to the status of a developed country, generally you keep your classification as developing to get those benefits. That is why China, though China is a developed country today, right? The kind of economic power that it has, the kind of military power that it has, it showcases itself as a developing country because it is giving tough fight to US as the world leader. So on one side it is doing that, second side what it is saying, I am a developing country, so you have to support me. And on what premise it is classifying itself as a developing country? Because of the very huge population base. So that is why US is saying, though you tell yourself as a developing country, but in technically you are a developed country. So whatever benefits you reaped in the last 15-16 years under the platform of WTO, it is all illegal. And you have not carried out any reforms in your economy, you still continue to be a non-market economy. What you were there in 2002, you still continue to be the same in 2017. So whatever benefits you derived in the last 15 years, they are all illegal. That is why a question comes in the GS paper 3 mains mein, did China benefit disproportionately from WTO? Because it was allowed to trade with the rest of the world when it was taken on the folds of WTO. Because it traded, it got money. Because it got money, it became an economic powerhouse. Because it got an economic power, it became a military power. So everything started in a chain. So that is the reason why the world does not accept China as a clear country, because you have done something wrongs. That is the reason why the world is not accepting the growth of China. The world is not questioning the growth of US. The world is not questioning the growth of Japan. Japan is also a developed country, right? But the world is not questioning their growth. Why the world is questioning the growth of China is because it did not keep its ground of economic activity clear. So it continued to be a non-market economy. Okay? Yeah. The reason why after 1970s US supported China's economic activity was, it thought once the economy is converted into capitalism, probably the country will also convert into capitalism. But they are dead shane na, they are very intelligent. So what they did, economy ko bana diya capitalism, they remained a communist state. So they did not allow the capitalist ideology to penetrate from economic dimension to the political dimension. So they did not allow this. So that is how they continue to be a capitalist as well as a communist state. Capitalist when it comes to economy, communist when it comes to the political ideology that they follow. Okay? Yeah. Anything else? Who? The businessman. No. There is no role of in a capitalist economy, the complete control is with the business people. The government will regulate. Regulatory power is there with the government, but the production capability, the supply capability, it is all with the business class people. When we talk about weapons also, there is an association called National Rifles Association, the NRA of America. It is known to be one of the richest associations in the world, more rich than your football league associations, which happens to be very rich. The National Rifle Association is considered the richest association because the government allowed it to do something. So it devised a product, because the moment you say everybody can own a weapon, it means you have opened the scope for demand. The more the demand, the more he supplied. The more he supplied, the more he earned. So that is how the entire production, demand and supply controlled by him, only the regulatory power given to the government. No president, no court can control the gun law in US. The moment somebody tries to control, the NRA will take action immediately. The presidents have been removed in the past, somebody who tried to control this gun culture. It is all money. Money. Okay? Yeah. Come again? They will not allow the constitution to be changed. See, in the historical past in US, the constitution changed only to support the capitalist, only to fill the coffers of the capitalist, not to empty them. You remember this. See,
There can be a rebellion.
who is bothered? Do you think there is no rebellion in America? There is so much of problems in America.
There will always be a suppressed class would be getting suppressed.
It will be there. It will continue to be there. They will snub it. They will control the government in a way that they will force the government to be inactive in this particular domains. That is how it happens. In our country also, you see any major decision, it has got economic angle to it. See, in the when the Cold War ended in the 1990s, America promised to Russia that the NATO will not expand to the east. That was the promise. So now whatever you are seeing today, it is the direct result of a broken promise. And who is the aggressor here? America, who promised that the NATO will not come to the east. In one of the current affairs, I think I have given you that map also. In 1970, what was the extent of NATO? What is the extent of NATO today? Now today you have given admission to Finland and Sweden and Finland, both the easternmost possible countries in the entire Europe. So what you have done, you have broken your promise and you have expanded towards the east. The more you expanded towards the east, Russia feels threatened. Russia, you have to understand one thing, Russia is not feeling threatened militarily. Please understand this dimension very clearly. There is no fear of military threat. The fear is the threat of change of ideology. They do not want capitalism to come onto its shores. The moment capitalism comes onto its shores, what will happen? The moment capitalism comes, what will happen? You tell me. Anybody? What will happen? The moment capitalism comes?
Political structure will change.
It will demand the change of political structure, which Russia does not want to change. It says, I will not change my political structure, come what may, because this is my belief system. Russia will not lose anything. Even America physically comes and sits in Finland and Finland and Sweden. Russia will only move back. Russia is a huge country. It will prolong the war to winters. Automatically people will die, the machinery will fail. So Russia, once the summer will come, automatically it will come back. That's what happened with Hitler also. So there is no fear of military intervention. The fear is change of political ideology over a period of time. That's what it is. Okay? So with this we will end today's class. Tomorrow when you come back, revise all these domains. Many other topics related to Indian economy we will cover. Okay?